and welcome to the Farmers Supply Association report for November. We're taping on November the 14th. The harvest is nearly over. It's not totally over. It'll be a while before it's totally over, but there's also been a lot of field work done, so we're going to be ready for next year in a lot of cases. The best seed bed is always that stale seed bed, it seems like, in most cases. So we're going to have a lot of those to just spray and plant in next spring, so looking forward to that. It is time, once we get done, even before that, to start thinking about that 2023 crop. I get questions every now and then about what I think the crop mix is going to be, and I still think we've got so much volatility in so many of our inputs nowadays that it's really hard to know for sure until we get there. We don't ever change our crop mix that much in this part of the country, but input costs can certainly affect that to a large extent. Also weather, even though we're going to have a lot of these stale seed beds, if it's an extended wet period next spring, that could change things. But overall, don't look for huge changes, but we'll see between now and then what all transpires as far as input costs and weather. I think one thing that we do need to be thinking about is variety selection, and I'm specifically going to talk about rice today. That's the only one I really do one specific program on is rice, because we've got a limited enough varieties that I can do it. If you start talking about soybeans and corn, you got so many varieties, so many companies, and it's just hard to do anything in a 5 or 10 minute period. So do want to talk about rice this time. I'm going to talk first simultaneously kind of about the varieties and hybrids that we currently grow, have been growing for a few years, and I want to talk about some newer stuff that's coming as well. I'm going to talk about varieties and hybrids that are or will be available to Farmers Supply customers, whether it be this year or maybe in the future, hopefully next year, on a lot of these different varieties and hybrids. One thing I do want to caution you on these new things I'm talking about, seed availability, a lot of times is not going to be there. I want to mention these things that they're coming and you can be thinking about them, but and in some of these cases there will be no seed availability to this year. In some of them it would be extremely limited seed availability. So again, this is something mainly on these newer ones. We're looking to the future and let you know some of the things that are coming that might be able to improve your operation. I'm going to go through the different categories of varieties and hybrids one at a time and kind of talk about what we're used to growing, what's out there that we're familiar with, and if there is anything new, I want to briefly mention those. Of course, I want to start with the conventional long grain varieties. For years now, Diamond's been really about the only game in town as far as conventional long grain varieties. Also want to mention the ProGo 1 and the ProGo 2. These are University of Arkansas bred varieties that were bought by Progeny, and Progeny markets those now. So they have some good conventional varieties available. Again, ProGo 1 is more for the medium to lighter soils. ProGo 2 is more for the medium to heavy soils. So again, those are Diamond, ProGo 1, and ProGo 2. There is a new one that has been released by the University of Arkansas called Ozark. Again, seed availability extremely limited, if any. So don't look to plant this year or next year in most cases, but it does have promise. Yield potential in the tests that I've seen so far is significantly better than Diamond, so a good yield bump from it. One good thing about it, one characteristic it does have good heat tolerance. It seems like every year that we have these off years as far as yields, we always seem to point to heat more than anything else. So, this variety does have some better heat tolerance, so hopefully it'll be more consistent with that tolerance. So, again, that's the conventional long grains. Conventional medium grains, we've grown Jupiter forever. Had Titan around for several years. Titan has never really caught on. I mean, we've got some people that grow Titan like Titan, but it's never really caught on like Jupiter. So those have kind of been the standards. Some people have told me this past year especially that Jupiter seems to have run its course. It doesn't do as good anymore. So we do have a new one that's been released by the University of Arkansas. It's called Taurus, Taurus. Taurus seems like a significant yield bump in the tests that I've seen so far. And I always have to take these tests with a grain of salt. Seems like sometimes we have great testers in the small plots, and when we get them out in the field and out in the real world in a lot of different environments, something shows up that makes it, not as good as it appeared in the test. So hopefully Taurus will pan out and give us that, significant yield bump. And I mean, it's really a significant yield bump in the test. So hopefully Taurus will do that for us. I don't think there's any seed availability this year. So hopefully some seed grown and increased, and we can look at that next year. The Clearfield varieties, Clearfield 16, CLL 16 has become the workhorse over the past couple of years. Most people like it that have grown it. Some have done very well with it. Made a yield bump on their farm that they haven't seen before. So it's certainly still kind of the standard right there. And quickly on, there is a CLM04, the medium grain Clearfield, which has done very well, very comparable to Titan and Jupiter in yield. So that's available as well. As far as new stuff, the new one is CLL18, and looking at the test from the University of Arkansas, there is a small yield bump there. It's not a huge yield bump, like I was talking about with some of those conventionals a while ago, but there is a small yield bump for CLL18 over the 16. It doesn't have quite as broad of a package, disease package, and some of the agronomic issues maybe not quite as good as the 16. It's certainly not bad characteristics, just not quite that broad package that the 16 has, but certainly there is a yield bump there a little bit in the tests that I've seen so far. So we'll see how when that gets in the field. I think there's a little bit of seed available, not a whole lot, but it's one of those things that has some promise, and we'll see how it does when it gets in the field. Looking at the Rice Tech hybrids, we've kind of had the last few years, we've got really used to 3 basically. The 753 as far as the conventional Clearfield, and the full page, or the Rice Tech version of Clearfield, 7321 and 7521 have kind of become the standards. All have done very well. There is some newer stuff out there as far as conventionals, 7301, 7302, 7401, all look good. They've got that typical Rice Tech hybrid package, excellent disease package, high yields. So that it's really no different than most of the other ones. The newer ones do seem to have a little bit better milling yield potential, so that's something we've been looking for out of the hybrids is better milling, and I think we're seeing some of that, with these newer ones. So it looks like a little step up in milling, and still the other excellent characteristics of hybrids. As far as the again, 7301, 7302, and 7401, the conventionals. The full page, 7421 and 7523. One thing about 7523, that is kind of an improved 7521, and it does have better fall smut resistance. And that's one thing that most people don't like about 7521 is the bad fall smut it can get. And even though that typically doesn't hurt near as bad as it looks as far as yield or quality or anything like that, we certainly don't like looking at it, and would rather not have that out there. So 7523 does appear that it will have again a better fall smut rating and resistance there. Again, these newer ones, again, seed availability will not be that big, I don't think. So again, just something to think about for the future more than anything else. The last thing is the Quizalofop tolerance, and we're talking about the Previsia or the Max Ace if you're talking about the Rice Tech version of that. So PVL03 again is the Previsia Quizalofop resistant variety, and then the Rice Tech Quizalofop variety is 7231, and that's a variety, not a hybrid. And then 7331 is their hybrid version of that. So again, those are the same as they've been the last couple of years. So the same choices right there. So again, we're going to be mainly with the stuff we're used to in 2023, but in 2024 especially, I think there'll be some really good stuff to look at, and so I'm pretty excited about some of these newer things that are coming out. Again, there's going to be a little bit of seed of some of these available this year, but not a lot. So I think look forward to hopefully 2024 being able to grow some more of these newer varieties and hybrids. So until next time, this is Randy Klepetska with your Farmers Supply Association Agri Report.